out of this earlier this week when we started Monday's session. We were looking for accumulations out of this area, and I mentioned in the chat that I wanted to see some GU EU shorts out of this DXY accumulation here on the 4-hour into this daily gap that was resting here about 50% and into this previous area of distribution. So that's actually something that we ended up playing out with. It really played out to the T. I wanted to see a little bit higher. We didn't get that. It's okay. Main objective was hit, lowest hanging fruit. So let's go over to GU and EU to review all that and how that ended up affecting price action. So personally, on a monthly perspective, we were aiming for this high. We actually tapped into that high. I want to see again a little bit higher, but I will not be surprised if we move more to the downside. I need more data to anticipate whether I'm going to have a bearish monthly objective or a bullish monthly objective. I don't think I have sufficient amount of data in the monthly alone to really determine that. So now on a weekly objective, I would like to see the weekly objective keep going into the upside into this insufficiency here specifically. So it'd be nice to just continue seeing more longs. And the daily is really supporting that bias, given that we were targeting this imbalance here. So remember that gap on DXY, it looks very similar to this insufficiency. So the shorts from Monday, into this gap, and I remember mentioning this low here was one of our main objectives, and I was mentioning on Monday, Tuesday that I would like to see some accumulations out of this area. So now we're getting some really nice accumulations below the lows, which is the reason why I'm more leaning towards the shorts on the DXY. Okay. And so you guys can see now that we came below the lows, our high, right? We came about 50%, which is beautiful, into this daily insufficiency. Again, super beautiful price action. And so my eyes, after we sweep liquidity and break structure to the upside, go into this insufficiency tonight. So that's an area that really catches my attention, but the shorts down into that area just made sense. So here we go. We took out November's high. Okay, we take out November's high, we break structure to the downside on the 1 hour and create this beautiful insufficiency here, right? And so when we get into that insufficiency during New York, okay, price action gets in there, distributes, and really didn't give much of an entry until the very next day. So I'll show you guys here where I personally really was attracted to price action. My attention was looking at, again, 1 hour, this insufficiency here, and then this whole 4-hour range to the downside, okay, was right here. And personally, that range got played twice. And here on the 1 hour, on the 4 hour, we created a new low. Okay. But one thing I didn't like is that on the 1 hour, we didn't. And so I kept that in mind. You know, sometimes that does happen. I know that you guys have encountered this type of situation before when the 4 hour does something and the 1 hour doesn't. And so I really just kept my eyes and my mind open to the possibilities that we could still come back to 50% into this insufficiency. And so when we did come back in there, took out some previous liquidity, I was mentioning some shorts during New York above this Asian high here into the previous daily low, or into this current low right here. I think it was the previous daily low on EU. And we were mentioning, okay, some distributions out of this candle here. And we did come back twice into it. So once we created that low, into it once, and once we created that lower low, we came back to that area one more time. And of course, if you did participate in those shorts, the main objective was this low right here. And I mentioned that I would be 80 to 90% out of that trade after that. And so that's actually ended up playing out really well. And then it ended up coming down for this low, essentially. So below the lows, what do we look for? That accumulation, right? And so right below the lows earlier today, we did have some really nice long opportunities. We took out the low, we created a new higher high. Coming back to the 15-minute, this whole 1 hour range from this low to this 1 hour high, we had what we call internal liquidity, right? We take internal liquidity out and get some really nice long opportunities. And they really played out beautifully throughout the day yesterday or earlier today, depending on where you're at in the world, or maybe you're watching the recording. But that was then on Wednesday, Wednesday's New York session. Okay. Now 4 hours looking pretty spicy. I want to see some longs out of this area into some more highs, and essentially I want to see us really going back up now that we took out that daily range here. We took out that daily support level. I want to see longs up here, so I'd be targeting some more longs into that range right there. So personally, that's a really good target for me. This looks pretty reasonable. If we just climb lower, first target would of course be the previous daily high there. If we hit that target before, I'm okay with hitting that target before New York session. It doesn't matter as long as we really see some clear accumulations and we have our daily objective very noted, which would be this one. So really clean price action. Again, just really following the DXY and the correlation with the DXY. The DXY really says it all. And if you guys notice, like on the DXY, I rarely go any lower than like the 1 hour, right? It's just to get your directional bias and supporting confirmations. So you still weekly objective that high. Monthly objective did get hit. We did trade into that area, sub previous monthly highs. I really liked how we did that. And so then weekly objective is that high right there. Daily objective was actually this low, and we had some slight divergence between GU and EU. And yeah, EU just didn't give it to me. Yeah. What we did end up taking out is some minor liquidity coming into this previous area of accumulation and sweeping that previous daily low, which is, you know, acceptable. Of course, I will take that. You can't win them all, right? Like sometimes price action is going to do what price action needs to do. So with that accumulation, I'm more in favors of GU for accumulations. GU seems to be doing really well as well. That 4 hour imbalance does really catch my attention. Anywhere inside that imbalance or lower, getting some accumulation in there would really be clean to take it to previous daily high here. So actually I'm going to move my daily objective, and it's okay if your daily objective sometimes doesn't get hit and we go the opposite direction. Just adjust. Now revisit, analyze, and adjust. As long as you guys are journaling these things, you have such good documentation of where your bias is, where your mentality is, and how many times out of the week you get your daily bias correct, how many weeks out of the month you get your weekly objective correctly, you know. So those are really crucial data points that I highly suggest you guys are documented throughout your journey. They will tell you a lot more about your trading and your bias and your accuracy than anything else. Like higher time frames are always going to be super, super key, and your guys' understanding of them. So on EU, I know we were looking for shorts as well. I didn't like the shorts on EU as much, but they did end up playing out very nicely through Monday. I didn't like how we were just kind of respecting this area here on EU, but we ended up just doing some weird price action and dumping nevertheless. So I did mention that I didn't like EU shorts. I was more in favors of GU shorts, and I personally think that GU shorts ended up playing out a lot better as well from this Asian price action, this Asian high. So again, I'll share that information with you guys as we're breaking down the charts. Okay, so here we are. Oh man, what a beautiful setup. So if you guys don't know my one of my favorite setups is when we see like accumulation or distribution below the lows. But if it's the Asian low, Asian highs, you guys can see here, we come down during London, we accumulate, and then we just continue moving to the upside. So I think that's a very clean price action right there. Played out beautifully into that previous daily high here. Yeah, and I believe it's going to continue moving higher. So hopefully we get some slight retracement. But if not, you guys already know what the target is. If you are already part of the longs from here or here, you already know what the main target and objective is. And also for the week, right? Like you guys already know for the week, we're aiming at this high as well. I personally be aiming for that high. Before aiming for that high, I definitely pay myself out very fat here. External liquidity rests above that high. Daily external liquidity. So I like that. Something that I would say is like, I know that daily internal liquidity wasn't swept, but write this down if you didn't know it already. External liquidity, so it goes first before internal liquidity. External liquidity has to get swept first, and so we swept here, external liquidity here, then we come 50% or lower of this range and sweep internal liquidity here. Okay, or actually, I'm gonna just draw it out. Internal liquidity here. Okay, and then we leave external liquidity again up here, and we take that out. And so you would anticipate internal liquidity sweep, and not necessarily does it external liquidity sweep guarantee an internal liquidity sweep. Okay, because then after every higher high, we'll get a higher low that comes 50% or lower, and that's really not the case. Write this down. External liquidity can be swept once, twice, three, multiple times before we come back to internal liquidity. But internal liquidity can only be taken, or the rule is internal liquidity is only identified. There we go. That's the key word. Internal liquidity is only identified when and only after we sweep external liquidity. But as you guys can see here, we swept external liquidity, dismissed internal, which was this one right here, dismissed the internal liquidity, and just are looking like we're heading for that external liquidity again. So maybe after we sweep this external liquidity, we'll come back for internal. So it's just something to keep in mind. I know that internal and external liquidity are something that I talk about a lot. So there's some food for thought for you guys to review and back test yourselves. So yeah, that's mainly my main objective for EU and GU. Gold. On Monday and Tuesday, we were looking for shorts. So let's go over gold. Okay, Monday, we got some beautiful shorts above November's high. Okay, so we swept the previous monthly high. Okay, major liquidity. New York just ends up distributing some more, right? Creating a new lower low. Now below this low, inside this insufficiency here, I was anticipating some more lows. Okay, I was anticipating some more shorts. So when we came in there on Tuesday, okay, I still have the markups from Tuesday. When we were looking at this distribution, we did get into that our previous, not our previous, but our zone, our point of interest. Now the final target didn't get hit, okay, but this first target definitely did. Okay, so just remember to pay yourself out at all times and always aim for the lowest hanging fruit. First, pay yourself out. Every time you open up a trade, make sure that you pay yourself out before you walk away from your computer. So let's say you're in a trade and you want to set it and forget it. Cool. Set an alert for where you want to take profit or partials. Set it and forget it. Cool. And then when it's time to take partials, go in there, follow your plan, take partials, and then again, you can set it and forget it, right? But I just gave you guys a really cool tip earlier in the beginning of the session about why I believe gold is going to continue to just fly. Sorry if I whistled in somebody's ear. I forget that I have the mic really close to my face. Sorry about that. Okay, so I anticipate this to continue to move up, given that China has adopted, I forget how many tons again. I'll read it one more time. It has adopted 32 tons of gold. Okay, so $1.8 billion in gold reserve is now stored in their gold reserves. So quite a substantial amount. So shout out to China for doing that. Now we're gonna see gold potentially continue to just buy. So if you're holding longs just kind of makes sense for all of our USD secondary assets, right? So EU, GU, and gold. You know, it's all aiming for more longs. So I think we're gonna have a really cool buying opportunity for the remainder of the week. I'm saying that if you are in longs, it's probably really good to hold longs until like Friday before New York session starts. And why do I say Friday before New York session starts? Because Friday we have some US dollar news. Give me 1 second. Here, I need to filter out for some reason this. Boom. Okay, cool. Friday we have some good US dollar news that are taking place. And 9:45, December 16th. Am I looking at the right week? No, I'm not. That's why. This Friday. It's before New York session. Yes. So before New York session, like 30 minutes before we get together, we're going to have PPI. And PPI news are going to come out and see. It's going to have the same effect. PPI is greater, then dollar's going to go up. PPI is lower, then PPI is going to push the dollar down, which would go in confluence with most of our distribution bias and long biases on these other assets. So I'm looking forward to that, all of that price action, and I should say, I'm going to share one indice play that I did participate on this week, and I'm probably going to call it good after that, just because we've been here for a while and I like to maintain these sessions easy to watch and digest. Okay, so this is going to go along the lines of internal and external liquidity. Okay, I'm a strong believer in those things, but they are not, write this down, they are not main confirmations. Okay, if you guys haven't seen my previous video, I want you guys to go look at it. It is the first video in the December folder, and it's about the 4 types of liquidity. Okay, the 4 types of liquidity. Can you guys name those in order for me? What's number 1? What's the strongest type of liquidity level? Monthly. Beautiful. Number one, previous monthly high or low. Miles got number two. Beautiful. Previous weekly high and low. I see you guys been doing your homework. Okay, number three. Yes, sir. Number three, previous daily high and low. Can somebody tell me the word? Okay. I'm looking for a specific word for number four. Ooh, you're super close. You're super, super close. Intraday, yes. Yes. Ah, Selena. Thank you. Miles, thank you. Yes, yes. Which, by the way, Andrea, you're very much right, by the way. It is, Miles got it, hourly and Asian. Yes, so it's intraday. Intraday liquidity consists of Asian high and low, along with 1 hour high and low. Okay, and then as supporting thing, okay, so as only as supporting confirmation will we have external and internal liquidity. And write it down like this, because most people write it down internal and external. Yes, Miles, you got it. External and internal liquidity. I want you guys to write it down in that order as well. External first and internal second. External is followed by internal and not the other way around. You have to have external first for internal to line up. Okay, so I'll give you guys an example as to why these are supporting, right? These are only supporting liquidity levels, but for my internal and external, right? So I'll show you guys right now why that is. You guys can see here on a monthly objective, from this high to that low, 50% and above, we have what? Internal liquidity, yes, but we also have its internal liquidity second. But first of all, that is a previous monthly high. And on top of that being a previous monthly high, it's internal liquidity. Now let's go to the weekly. Find the weekly range. Okay, so let's see. See here. From this weekly high to that weekly low. Okay, we have that weekly range. 50% and above, we have this previous weekly high sweep. But it's not just a previous weekly high sweep, it's a previous weekly high sweep and internal liquidity. Okay, then you have previous weekly lows run on liquidity, and it's also external liquidity. Okay, so this is also a previous weekly low right here, but it's not external liquidity, right? So that's an example of when it's not following with the supporting confirmation. But when it does have the supporting confirmation, it's an extra add-on to the confirmation that you're of your bias. So DXY daily, it's the best example I could give you guys. Okay, so, or actually, I think it was no, yeah, we'll just continue on Dow. Right here, this range here from high to low, right here. Now daily, from this low to that high, what do we have here? We have a previous daily low sweep, yes, but it was 50% and below, which makes it, after we sweep this external liquidity here, now it's also our internal liquidity sweep, right? So it just lines up very, very nicely. Okay, So again, we'll do a 4-hour internal liquidity. As we break this down, I'll show you guys this really cool point that was brought up to my attention. So we, on Monday, we had this big drop, okay? But before we had the drop, we had external liquidity standing, which is also the previous daily low. Okay, so that's also confirmation. Previous daily low plus external liquidity, solid target, solid target. Then you have previous weekly low over here, which is also external liquidity, but we're gonna call it a previous weekly low. Give me 1 second. But yeah, we're gonna call that previous weekly low and also external liquidity. I'm gonna put that right there. Boom. Okay. So solid targets for external liquidity and for the shorts. So we're bearish, right? Got lower low, lower high, lower low. Okay. And so a lot of people were saying that this was your whole 4-hour range.